I still remember the exact sound my ribs made when they broke. Like green wood snapping. 3 of them at once. But that comes later. Much later. First, let me tell you about the smell of my daddy's hair when he came home from the mines, like the earth had claimed him and then changed its mind. Hi there. My name is Helen Crawford, though most folks here call me Miss Helen. I'm 71 years old, and I live in a small brick house in Ashland, Kentucky, right where the Big Sandy River meets the Ohio. I've got a porch that needs painting, a garden that grows better than it should, and a granddaughter who convinced me to start talking to a camera. "Grandma," she said, "your stories are too good to die with you." So here I am, telling you about a life I never thought I'd survive long enough to look back on. Let's start at the beginning. I was born in 1954 in a town so small it didn't have a name on most maps. Just outside Pikeville, people would say, like that explained everything. Our house sat at the end of a dirt road that turned to red mud when it rained. 2 bedrooms, tin roof, a porch that sagged on one side where the wood had rotted through. Daddy worked underground. Mama worked above it, taking in laundry, baking bread for the boarding house, doing whatever paid $1 or $2. We were poor, but I didn't know it. Not really. The house always smelled like something good. Cornbread in the oven, coffee on the stove. Sometimes, if Daddy had a good week, the sharp sweet smell of apples frying in butter. My earliest memory is sitting on that crooked porch, watching Daddy walk up the road at dusk. Black from head to toe. Coal dust in his hair, his clothes ground into the lines of his hands. He'd stop at the pump in the yard and scrub his face and arms with the brown soap Mama made, but the dust never really left. It lived in his lungs. In his cough. In the way he'd sit real still sometimes, just trying to breathe. But when he walked through that door, he always smiled. Always kissed Mama on the cheek. Always asked, "How was your day, Ruthie?" Not, "What's for dinner?" Not, "Where's my beer?" Just, "How was your day?" Mama would tell him. About the bread that didn't rise right. About Mrs. Ferguson's daughter who was getting married. About me falling off the porch step and scraping my knee but being brave about it. And he'd listen like it was the most important news in the world. Mama taught me to read before I started school. We'd sit together on the porch with a catalog or a church bulletin, and she'd run her finger under the words. "Reading's a kind of freedom," she'd say. "Once you can read, nobody can lie to you quite so easy." Daddy agreed. "School's the one thing they can't take from you, baby girl. Not the bank, not the company, not nobody." So I loved school the way some kids loved Christmas. I walked an hour each way, sometimes through snow that came up to my knees, and never once complained. I soaked up words like they were water, and I'd been walking through a desert. When I was 16, my teacher, Mrs. Calloway, pulled me aside after class. "Helen," she said, "you're smart enough to go to college." "I mean it," I laughed. College was for rich kids from Lexington. Not for girls whose daddies coughed black into handkerchiefs. But Mrs. Calloway didn't laugh. She looked me right in the eye and said, "Don't you dare make yourself small because the world told you to." So I didn't. I finished high school first in my family to do it. Then I went to a teacher's college on a scholarship that covered tuition but not much else. I waitressed nights, slept on a friend's couch, ate peanut butter sandwiches for dinner more times than I can count. But I got my certificate. I became a teacher. Daddy cried at my graduation. Turned his face away and pretended he had something in his eye. Mama squeezed my hand so hard I thought she'd break my fingers. You did it, she whispered. You got out. But I didn't want out. Not really. I wanted to go back. To teach the kids like me. The ones who walked through mud and snow because they believed in something better on the other side. I got a job at a small elementary school just outside Pikeville. Grades 1 through 3, all in one room. 26 kids, half of them hungry, most of them smarter than anyone gave them credit for. I loved those kids. Loved the way they crowded around my desk in the morning to tell me about a dog they'd seen, a game they'd played, a bad dream they'd had. Loved the way their faces lit up when a hard word finally made sense. I was 20 years old. I thought I had everything figured out. That's when he walked in. It was a Tuesday in October. Bright and cold. The leaves outside the window were the color of fire. I was helping a little girl sound out the word, pumpkin, when the door opened. Tall man. Clean-shaven. Dark hair combed back neat. Wearing a pressed white shirt and gray slacks that looked like they'd been ironed that morning. He carried himself like someone who'd never doubted his right to walk into a room. "Excuse me," he said. His voice was smooth, polite. "I'm looking for Miss Crawford?" "That's me," I said, suddenly aware that I had chalk dust on my skirt and a smudge of crayon on my hand. He smiled, wide and easy. "David Bennett. My sister just moved here from Prestonsburg. Her boy's starting next week. Thought I'd come by and introduce myself." He held out a hand. I shook it. His palm was warm and dry. "Of course," I said. "We're happy to have him." David Bennett looked around the classroom like he was genuinely interested. Noticed the drawings pinned to the wall. The bookshelf I'd built from crates and painted blue. The glass jar on my desk where I kept wildflowers. "You've made it real nice in here," he said. "Bet these kids are lucky to have you." No man had ever said anything like that to me before. He came back the next week to drop off his nephew. And the week after that. Always polite. Always asking how things were going. Always noticing small things: a new bulletin board, a book I was reading, a scarf I'd worn to church. "You're good at what you do," he said once. "I admire that." I felt my face go hot. "Thank you. An educated woman," he added, like he was tasting the words. "That's rare around here." Mama was suspicious from the start. "He's too smooth," she said, kneading bread with sharp, hard movements. "Men like that always know they're handsome." "He's just being friendly," I protested. She gave me a look. "Friendly's got a purpose, Helen. Just make sure you know what it is." But I didn't listen. I was young. I'd spent my whole life being good, being careful, being the girl who did everything right. I wanted something for myself. David asked me to dinner. Then to a church social. Then to a movie in town, something romantic with actors whose names I can't remember anymore. He talked about his job selling insurance. About wanting to start his own agency someday. About building a life for the right woman, looking at me when he said it. Daddy liked him at first. David talked baseball and politics. Helped carry firewood. Complimented Mama's cooking. But one night, after David left, Daddy sat me down. "Helen," he said carefully, "I need you to listen to something." I waited. "A man can show you his Sunday best for a long, long time," he said. And you won't know what's underneath till you're already tied to him. You understand what I'm saying? Daddy, he's been nothing but respectful. That's what I'm saying. Nothing but. Just make sure there's more to him than that. I should have paid more attention. But I was 22. And I thought love looked like clean shirts and polite compliments and someone who showed up when he said he would. We married in January of 1976. Small ceremony at the Baptist church. I wore a dress Mama and I sewed together from fabric we found on sale. White cotton with lace on the sleeves. David wore a dark suit and a thin black tie. He looked like someone out of a magazine. The whole town came. There was cake and punch and an old man playing fiddle while people danced in the church basement. Daddy walked me down the aisle. Mama cried. David's mother gave me a cameo brooch that had been in their family for 3 generations. You take care of my boy, she whispered. I will, I promised. We spent our honeymoon in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. A little cabin with a view of the mountains. Cold outside, warm inside. We ate pancakes at a diner where they served them as big as your head. Walked through shops that sold taffy and hand-carved bears. At night, we sat by a fire and listened to the wind in the trees. The first 2 nights, he was gentle. Patient. Everything I'd hoped for. The 3rd night, something shifted. You're my wife now, he said, his voice different. Harder. That means you do what I need. I didn't understand what he meant at first. Then I did. I said I was tired. He said it didn't matter. I said I wanted to wait. He said we'd waited long enough. Afterward, I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, trying not to cry. He fell asleep with his arm across my chest. Heavy. Pinning me down. I told myself it was normal. That this was what marriage was. That I just needed to get used to it. It was the first lie I told myself. But it wouldn't be the last. When we got back to Pikeville, we moved into a small rental house near the school. 2 bedrooms. A kitchen with yellow linoleum that was peeling at the edges. A porch with a swing that creaked when the wind blew. For a little while, things were okay. I taught. He worked. We had dinner together most nights. He'd ask about my day. I'd ask about his. But there were moments, little cracks that I tried not to notice. Why are you wearing that dress? He'd say. It's a little tight, don't you think? Who was that man talking to you after church? You're spending too much time with those kids. Don't forget you've got a husband to take care of. I told myself he was just being protective. That he loved me. That this was what it looked like when someone cared. But deep down, in a place I didn't want to look, I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how wrong yet. That's where I'll leave chapter 1, my loves. I know it ends on a shadow. That's because shadows are where the hardest truths live. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. Next time, I'll tell you about the closed doors. About the lies I told myself and the ones he told me. About the first time I tasted blood in my own mouth. But tonight, all I'll say is this. If you're young and in love and someone is telling you marriage means giving up pieces of yourself, listen to an old woman who learned too late. Love shouldn't cost you your voice. And if it does, it isn't love at all. The first time I got pregnant, I thought it would fix everything. Isn't that what young wives believe? That a baby will soften a hard man. Make him gentle again. Give him something to love more than his own anger. I was wrong. Hello again, my loves. Helen Crawford here. Last time, I left you at the beginning of my marriage to David. The part where the cracks were just starting to show, but I was still telling myself they were normal. That every marriage had rough spots. That I just needed to try harder. This chapter is harder to tell. It's about the doors that close behind you. The ones you don't even notice until you realize you can't open them anymore. But I promised to tell you the truth. So here it is. 3 months after the wedding, I missed my period. I took the test at school, locked in the tiny bathroom during my lunch break. 2 pink lines, clear as day. I sat on that cold toilet seat and cried. Not sad tears, happy ones, scared ones, all of them at once. That night, I made David's favorite dinner. Pork chops and mashed potatoes. Green beans with bacon. Cornbread with honey butter. When he walked in, I could smell the whiskey before I saw his face. He'd been drinking more. Not every day, but often enough that I'd started counting bottles. Checking his breath when he kissed me hello. Smells good, he said, dropping into his chair. I waited until he'd eaten half his plate. Then I said it. David, I'm pregnant. He stopped chewing, looked up at me. For a second, I couldn't read his face at all. Then he smiled, big and wide, came around the table and pulled me into a hug that lifted me off my feet. A baby, he said into my hair. My son. Could be a girl, I said, laughing. No. His voice was firm, certain. It's a boy. I know it. For 2 weeks, he was different. Softer. He'd put his hand on my belly even though there was nothing to feel yet. He stopped complaining about my dresses or the men at church. He even came to Sunday dinner at my parents' house without grumbling about it. Mama pulled me aside while we were washing dishes. He treating you right? She asked quietly. He's happy about the baby, I said. She studied my face. That's not what I asked. I didn't answer. She dried a plate in silence. Then she said, You know where we live, Helen. Day or night. You understand? I nodded. But I didn't really understand. Not yet. I lost the baby at 11 weeks. It started with cramping during second period. By lunch, I was bleeding through my skirt. The school secretary drove me to the hospital. They did an ultrasound. The doctor's face told me everything before his mouth did. I'm sorry, Mrs. Bennett. There's no heartbeat. They kept me overnight. Gave me something for the pain. Sent me home with a pamphlet about miscarriage and a follow-up appointment I never made. David picked me up the next morning. Didn't say a word the whole drive home. Helped me into the house. Into bed. Then he left. I heard the truck start. Heard gravel spray. Heard silence. He came back after midnight. I smelled the bar on him. Cigarettes and beer and something sharper. He sat on the edge of the bed in the dark. You couldn't even do that right, he said. I thought I'd heard wrong. What? You lost my son. His voice was flat, cold. What kind of woman can't carry a baby? The words hit me like a fist. David, I don't. He stood up. I don't want to hear excuses. He slept on the couch that night. And the next. And the one after that. When he finally came back to our bed, he didn't hold me. Didn't ask how I was feeling. Just turned his back and fell asleep. I lay there in the dark, my hand on my empty stomach, and cried as quietly as I could. I got pregnant again 6 months later. This time I didn't tell him right away. I waited until I was past 12 weeks. Past the danger zone, I thought. When I finally told him, he just nodded. Good. Don't mess it up this time. I promised myself I'd be more careful. No lifting heavy things. No stress. I'd eat right, sleep right, do everything the books said. It didn't matter. At 15 weeks, the cramping started again. I knew before the doctor confirmed it. Same hospital. Same pamphlet. Same empty drive home. David didn't pick me up this time. I called my sister, Clara. She came with her husband, Frank. They drove me back to the little house with the yellow linoleum. David's truck wasn't there. You want us to stay? Clara asked. No, I said. I'm just going to sleep. She looked at me for a long moment. Helen, if you need anything, I know. But I didn't know. Not really. I didn't know how to ask for help. Didn't know what help even looked like. He came home 3 days later. Walked in like nothing had happened. Tossed his keys on the counter. Opened the fridge. There's no beer, he said. I've been in bed, I said quietly. I couldn't go to the store. He turned around slow. Looked at me like I'd said something in another language. You couldn't go to the store. He repeated it. Not a question. A statement. David, I just lost. You lost another one. He said it loud. Sharp. Yeah, I know. Because you're broken. Because there's something wrong with you. That's not. Don't tell me what it is or isn't. He moved closer. His face was red now. 2 babies, Helen. 2. What am I supposed to think? It's not my fault. My voice cracked. Then whose fault is it? He was shouting now. Mine? You think it's my fault? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. He grabbed his keys. I'm going out. When I get back, I want this house clean. And I want dinner ready. You think you can manage that? Or is that too much for a broken woman? The door slammed. The windows rattled. I sank onto the floor right there in the kitchen. I don't know how long I stayed there. Long enough for the sun to move across the linoleum. Long enough for my legs to go numb. When I finally got up, I cleaned. I cooked. I set the table. And when he came home that night, I didn't say a word about babies or blame or the way he'd screamed at me. I just served his dinner and smiled. That was the night I started disappearing. The hitting started small. A shove when I said something he didn't like. A grab of my arm that left fingerprint bruises. A slap that he said was an accident, that he'd been reaching for something and I got in the way. I'm sorry, baby, he'd say afterward. I didn't mean it. You know I didn't mean it. And I'd say, I know. Because what else could I say? Where else could I go? I started wearing long sleeves to school. Even in May when it was 90 degrees. The other teachers noticed but didn't ask. People didn't ask back then. They'd look at a bruise and then look away. It was easier that way. I got good at covering. Foundation over the purple under my eye. Scarves over the marks on my neck. Excuses over everything. I walked into a cabinet. I fell on the porch steps. I bruise easy. Always have. The lies came smoother every time. David lost his job that summer. He said it was his boss's fault. Said the man had it out for him. That there'd been money missing from accounts and they'd blamed David because he was new, because it was easier to fire him than find the real thief. I didn't ask questions. I was too scared of the answers. He stayed home. Drank more. The house got smaller. His anger got bigger. I kept teaching. My paycheck covered rent and groceries, but barely. I started skipping lunch to save money. Lost weight I couldn't afford to lose. One afternoon, I came home to find him in the bedroom with our closet torn apart. "Where's the money?" he asked. "What money? Don't play stupid." He threw a shoe across the room. "Your teacher money. Where do you keep it?" "The bank, David. We have a joint account." "No." He moved toward me. "The cash. I know you've been hiding cash." "I'm not hiding anything." His hand shot out, grabbed my throat, pushed me back against the wall. "Don't lie to me." I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, just clawed at his hand until he finally let go. I slid down the wall, gasping. He stood over me. "Next time I ask you something, you tell the truth. You hear me?" I nodded. He left. Didn't come back until morning. I slept on the bathroom floor that night. Door locked. Towel under my head. The tile was cold and hard, but it was the safest place in the house. That's when Sarah moved in next door. She was younger than me. Maybe 25. Divorced, she said. Worked at the grocery store on Main Street. Had blonde hair she wore in a ponytail and a smile that made you want to trust her. She brought over cookies the first week. Knocked on my door on a Saturday morning. "Hi, neighbor," she said. Thought I'd introduce myself. "I'm Sarah." "Helen," I said, keeping the door mostly closed. "These are for you." She held out a plate covered in foil. "Chocolate chip. My grandma's recipe." "Thank you. That's very kind." I tried to close the door. She took a step closer. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "Of course. Why?" "You've got a bruise. Right there." She pointed to her own cheek, mirroring where mine was. My hand flew up to cover it. "Oh." I fell. "Silly me." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Okay. Well, if you ever need anything, I'm right next door." "I'm fine. But thank you." She left. I watched her through the window. She looked back once before going inside. I should have known better. Should have kept my distance. Should have seen what was coming. But I was so lonely. So desperate for someone to talk to. Someone who wasn't David. So when she invited me for coffee the next week, I said yes. Sarah and I became friends. Or what I thought was friends. We'd sit on her porch in the late afternoons when David was out. She'd talk about her ex-husband, about leaving him, about starting over. "It's scary at first," she said once. "But then you realize you can breathe again." "I'm not," I started. "I know." She looked at me. Really looked. "You're not ready. That's okay. But when you are, you've got someone who understands." I wanted to believe her. Wanted to believe someone understood. I didn't notice the way she asked about David. Where he worked. What time he came home. Whether he was looking for a new job. I didn't notice the way she dressed when she knew he'd be outside. Or the way she'd lean over her fence to talk to him. Or the way he'd smile at her. A smile I hadn't seen in months. I didn't notice because I didn't want to. One night in late August, I woke up and David wasn't in bed. I found him on the back porch. Smoking. Staring at Sarah's house. "What are you doing?" I asked. He didn't turn around. "Go back to bed, Helen. It's 2 in the morning." I said go back to bed. His voice had that edge. The one that meant I should stop talking. Stop asking. Stop existing. So I went back inside. But I didn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Something was wrong. More wrong than usual. I just didn't know what yet. September came. School started. I threw myself into work because it was the only place I could still pretend to be whole. My students didn't know their teacher went home to a man who called her worthless, who grabbed her by the hair, who told her she was lucky he stayed because no one else would want her. They just knew Miss Crawford always had a smile, always had time to help them sound out a hard word, always made them feel like they mattered. I needed them to believe it, because I'd stopped believing it myself. One Friday afternoon, David was waiting in the school parking lot when I got out. He never did that, never picked me up, never showed up to school events or teacher meetings or anything involving my job. "Get in," he said through the open window. "Is everything okay? Just get in the car, Helen." I got in. My hands were shaking. We drove in silence. He didn't turn toward home. Just kept going. Out of town. Down a back road I didn't recognize. Finally he pulled over. Turned off the engine. "Sarah told me something interesting today," he said. My stomach dropped. "What?" "She said you've been talking to her about leaving me." "That's not. Don't lie." His voice was quiet. Dangerous. "Did you tell her I hit you?" "No." "Did you tell her you were unhappy?" "David, I never said I wanted to." His fist hit the dashboard so hard the glove box popped open. "You're my wife." He turned to look at me. His eyes were empty. Flat. "You don't talk to other people about our marriage. You don't embarrass me. You don't make me look like the bad guy." I wasn't. "If you ever say anything about what happens in our house, I will make you regret it." "You understand me?" I nodded. "Say it." "I understand." "Good." He started the car. "Now we're going home. You're making dinner. And you're going to thank me for being patient with a wife who can't seem to do anything right." I didn't cry. I'd learned not to cry in front of him. But on the inside, something broke. Something I'd been holding together with lies and hope and sheer stubborn will. And for the first time, I thought I can't survive this. That's where I'll leave you tonight, my loves. I know it's dark. I know it's hard to hear. But this is the part of the story people don't talk about. The part where you're still in it. Where you can't see the way out yet. Where you're just trying to make it through one more day. If you're in that place right now, if you're reading this from a bathroom floor, or a locked car, or anywhere you had to go to feel safe for 5 minutes, I need you to hear this. It's not your fault. What he does to you is not your fault. And the fact that you're still here, still breathing, still trying, that's not weakness. That's strength you don't even know you have yet. Next time, I'll tell you about the day everything fell apart. The day I stopped lying to myself. But tonight, just know you're not alone. You were never alone. I want to tell you about the moment I decided to leave. It wasn't dramatic. There was no music playing. No voice from heaven. No sudden burst of courage. It was a Tuesday morning. I was brushing my teeth. I looked up and saw my reflection in the bathroom mirror. And I didn't recognize the woman looking back. "Hi again. Helen Crawford here. Last time I left you in a dark place. Me in a car with a man who'd just threatened me. A marriage held together by fear. A life getting smaller every day. This chapter is about the day that life cracked wide open. But first, I need to tell you about the 3 weeks leading up to it." After that night in the car, I became very quiet. I cooked David's meals. I cleaned the house. I went to work. I came home. I didn't talk to Sarah anymore. Didn't talk to anyone, really, except my students. At school, I was still Miss Crawford. Patient. Kind. The teacher who remembered every child's name and what they'd told her about their dog or their baby sister or their favorite color. But the moment I got in my car, I became someone else. Someone who checked the rearview mirror constantly. Someone who practiced what to say when she walked through the door. Someone who moved through her own house like a guest trying not to disturb the host. David watched me, all the time, like he was waiting for me to slip. To say the wrong thing. To give him a reason. I didn't give him one. I became invisible, but I was also planning. Not consciously at first. It started small. I'd be washing dishes and think, I could leave while he's at the bar. I'd be folding laundry and think, I could fit everything I need in one suitcase. I started keeping a little cash. Not much. $5 here, $3 there. Money from returning bottles. Money from a garage sale I told him went to groceries. I hid it in a tampon box under the bathroom sink. David would never look there. I also started paying attention. To when he drank the most. To when he left the house. To when Sarah came and went. To the way they looked at each other when they thought I wasn't watching. Because they were looking at each other. I wasn't imagining it. I just didn't know how far it had gone. 3 weeks after that night in the car, I woke up at 2 a.m. and David wasn't in bed. Again. I lay there for a minute, listening. No TV. No sound from the kitchen. Nothing. I got up. Walked through the house. Empty. His truck was in the driveway. His shoes by the door. His wallet on the counter. But no David. I looked out the back window. And that's when I saw it. A light on in Sarah's house. Upstairs. In her bedroom. And a shadow moving across the window that was too tall to be her. I didn't think. I just moved. I walked out the back door in my nightgown and bare feet. Across our small yard. Through the gap in the fence. Across her yard. The grass was wet with dew. Cold. My feet left dark prints. Her back door was unlocked. I opened it. Stepped inside. The house smelled like her perfume. Something sweet and cloying that stuck in my throat. I could hear voices upstairs. Low. Laughing. I climbed the stairs. Each step creaked. But they didn't hear. Or they didn't care. Her bedroom door was open just a crack. I pushed it wider. And there they were. David. Sarah. In her bed. Not hiding. Not ashamed. Just there. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. Sarah saw me first. Her eyes went wide. She pulled the sheet up. Helen. David turned his head. Looked right at me. And smiled. Well, he said. I guess we don't have to sneak around anymore. I don't remember walking back to the house. 1 minute I was standing in Sarah's doorway. The next I was sitting at my kitchen table. It was still dark outside. The clock said 247 a.m. I stared at that clock. Watched the numbers change. 248. 249. 250. At 315, I heard the back door open. David walked in. Still in his jeans. No shirt. His hair messy. He poured himself a glass of water. Drank it standing at the sink. Then he turned around and looked at me. You gonna say something? He asked. I didn't answer. Come on, Helen. You walked in on us. You must have something to say. My voice came out flat. Empty. How long? Does it matter? How long, David? He shrugged. Couple months. Since July, maybe. July. 2 months. While I was covering bruises and hiding money and trying to figure out how to survive him. She's better than you, he said. Like he was commenting on the weather. In every way. You know that, right? I stood up. Where are you going? He asked. To pack. He moved fast. Blocked the hallway. Put his hand flat on my chest and shoved me back. You're not going anywhere. Get out of my way. This is my house. You're my wife. You don't leave until I say you leave. I don't care what you say anymore. My voice was shaking, but I kept talking. I'm done, David. I'm leaving. Tonight. His face changed. The mask fell away. And what was underneath was something cold and ugly and completely empty. No, he said. You're not. He hit me before I could move. Not a slap this time. A closed fist. Right in my face. I went down hard. Tasted blood. Felt something crack in my jaw. He grabbed me by the hair. Dragged me back toward the kitchen. I tried to fight. Tried to kick. Tried to scream. He hit me again. And again. And again. You think you can embarrass me? He shouted. You think you can just leave? I couldn't answer. Couldn't breathe right. Everything was pain and noise and the feeling of my skull hitting the linoleum. You're nothing without me. You hear me? Nothing. No one's ever going to want you. You're broken. You're useless. You couldn't even give me a son. Each word came with a blow. My ribs. My stomach. My face. At some point, I stopped feeling it. Stopped being there. My mind floated somewhere above my body, watching this happen to someone else. Poor woman, I thought. Someone should help her. But there was no one to help. When he finally stopped, I was at the bottom of the stairs. I didn't remember him dragging me there. Didn't remember falling. But there I was, crumpled against the wall, blood in my mouth, my eyes swollen shut. David stood over me, breathing hard. I'm going back to Sarah's, he said. When I get back in the morning, you're going to apologize. You're going to beg me to stay. And maybe I'll think about it. He stepped over me, walked out the back door. I heard it close, heard his footsteps fade, then silence. I don't know how long I lay there. Long enough for the sky to start getting light. Long enough for my blood to dry on the floor. Long enough to think, this is how I die. On this floor. In this house. With this man. But then something in me stirred. Something small and stubborn and mean. Not today. I crawled. Couldn't stand yet. Just crawled. To the living room. To the phone. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely dial. It rang once. Twice. Hello? My sister Clara's voice, thick with sleep. Clara. My voice didn't sound like mine. Help me, Helen? What's wrong? He hurt me. Bad. I need help. Where is he? Gone. But he's coming back. Don't move. We're coming right now. Do you hear me? We're coming. She hung up. I let the phone drop. I crawled back to the wall. Sat there. Waited. Outside, the sun was coming up. Birds were singing. The world was waking up like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't almost died on my kitchen floor. Clara and her husband Frank got there in 20 minutes. When Clara saw me, she made a sound I'd never heard before. Something between a sob and a scream. Oh my God, Helen. Frank knelt down, looked at my face. His jaw tightened. We're taking you to the hospital, he said. No, he'll find me there. He's not going to touch you again. Frank's voice was hard, final. I promise you that. He picked me up. I was so light. I'd lost so much weight. He carried me like a child. Clara grabbed my purse, locked the door behind us. We got in their car. As we drove away, I looked back at the little house with the yellow linoleum. I never saw it again. The hospital was cold and bright. They took pictures of my face, my ribs, my arms, every bruise, every cut, every place he'd marked me. The doctor was a woman. Middle-aged, kind eyes. "How long has this been happening?" she asked. 2 years, I whispered. "Since we got married." She squeezed my hand. "You're safe now." But I wasn't sure I believed her. They wanted to keep me overnight. Clara and Frank stayed. Took turns sitting next to my bed. "We're calling the police," Frank said. "No. He'll what? Kill you?" "Helen, he already tried." I didn't have the strength to argue. Frank called from the hospital phone. A detective came, asked me questions, took notes. "We'll go pick him up," he said. "You press charges, we can hold him." "He'll get out," I said. "He'll come find me." The detective looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, I understand you're scared." "You don't understand." I started crying. Couldn't stop. "You don't understand what he'll do." Clara held me, let me cry into her shoulder until I had nothing left. They arrested David that afternoon. Found him at Sarah's house. He didn't resist, just smiled at the officers. Said it was all a misunderstanding. That his wife was unstable. That she'd fallen down the stairs. But the pictures didn't lie. And I'd finally told the truth. They charged him with assault. Held him on a $5,000 bond. His mother paid it the next day. The detective called to tell me. "He's out, but there's a restraining order. He can't come within 500 feet of you." "A piece of paper won't stop him," I said. "It's the best we can do." I thanked him and hung up. Clara looked at me. "You're staying with us. I can't put you in danger." "You're not. Your family. That's the end of it." So I went to my sister's house. Slept in her guest room. Jumped at every sound. Couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. Just waited for David to show up. Days passed. Then a week. Nothing. I started to think maybe the restraining order had worked. Maybe he'd moved on. Maybe he'd stay with Sarah and leave me alone. I should have known better. Frank came home early one day. His face was white. "Turn on the news," he said. Clara grabbed the remote, turned to the local station. And there it was. Breaking news out of Pikeville. A woman's body has been found behind a residence on Maple Street. Police have identified the victim as Sarah Mitchell, 26. They're searching for a person of interest in connection with her death. David Bennett, 31, currently out on bond for assault charges. The screen showed Sarah's house. Police tape. Flashing lights. Then David's photo. His smile. The same smile he'd given me that night in her bedroom. Clara turned off the TV. We sat in silence. "He killed her," I whispered. "We don't know that," Clara said. But her voice shook. "He killed her. And he's coming for me next." They found David 3 days later. There was a standoff. He'd been hiding in an old barn outside town. When the police surrounded it, he came out shooting. He didn't make it. The officer who called to tell me said it quick. Like he was ripping off a bandage. "Mrs. Bennett, I wanted you to know your husband's dead." He opened fire on officers. They returned fire. He didn't survive. I didn't say anything. "Ma'am? Are you there?" "I'm here. I'm sorry for your loss." I wanted to laugh. To scream. To tell him it wasn't a loss. It was a release. A pardon. A second chance I didn't deserve. But all I said was, "Thank you for calling." I hung up. Clara and Frank were watching me. "He's dead," I said. And then I cried. Not sad tears. Not relieved tears. Just tears that had been trapped inside me for 2 years, finally finding their way out. The funeral was small. David's mother glared at me across the grave. Like this was my fault. Like I'd pulled the trigger. I didn't care. I was numb, hollow, empty. Sarah's funeral was the same day. Different cemetery. I didn't go. The newspaper ran stories for a week. Domestic dispute turns deadly. Husband kills mistress, dies in police standoff. My name was in every article. My face in every paper. I couldn't go back to teaching. Parents called the school. Said they didn't want that woman around their children. Said I must have done something to make him snap. The principal called me at Clara's house. "Helen, I'm so sorry," she said. "But I think it's best if you take some time off. Let things settle down." "How much time?" Silence. Then, "I don't think you're coming back, Helen." I hung up. Lost my husband. Lost my home. Lost my job. Lost my name. All that was left was this broken body and the question I couldn't answer. Now what? That's where I'll leave you tonight, my loves. I know this chapter was hard. Violent. Ugly. But it's the truth. It's what happened when the door I'd been afraid to open finally got kicked down. Sometimes the worst day of your life is also the first day of your freedom. I just didn't know it yet. Next time, I'll tell you about the choice that changed everything. About the boy who carried his father's name but not his sins. But tonight, if you're in the middle of your worst day, if you're sitting in a hospital or a police station or your sister's guest room wondering how you'll survive this, you will. I know because I did. And I'm here, 71 years old, telling you the story. The worst day doesn't get the final word. You do. I need to tell you about the knock on the door that changed everything. It came on a Saturday morning in early 1980. 4 years after David died. 4 years after Sarah was found in that shallow grave behind her house. 4 years of me living in Clara's guest room. Staring at the ceiling. Trying to remember who I was before I became David Bennett's wife. The knock was soft. Hesitant. Clara answered it. I heard voices. Then Clara calling my name. "Helen? There's someone here to see you." I came down the stairs. Slow. Careful. Still afraid of everything. A woman stood in the doorway. Older. Tired looking. Gray hair pulled back in a bun. I recognized her immediately. Nancy Bennett. David's older sister. Hello again. Helen Crawford here. This chapter isn't about violence. Not the kind you can see, anyway. It's about the violence of choice. The kind that tears you apart from the inside. And it's about the moment I realized that sometimes love means choosing the thing that scares you most. "Hello, Helen," Nancy said. Her voice was quiet, careful. I couldn't speak, just stared. Clara stepped between us. "What do you want?" "I need to talk to Helen. Please. It's important. You have some nerve showing up here after what your brother—" "I know what my brother did." Nancy's eyes were wet. "I know he was a monster. I know he destroyed her. I'm not here to defend him." "Then why are you here?" I finally found my voice. Nancy looked past Clara, right at me. "I'm here about the boy." We sat at Clara's kitchen table. Clara stayed close, protective. Like she might have to throw Nancy out at any moment. Nancy's hands shook as she unfolded a piece of paper. "His name is Lucas," she said. "He's 4 years old. He was born in March of 1976. The math hit me like cold water. March 1976. 2 months after my wedding. While I was still in the honeymoon phase. Still believing David was good. David and Sarah, I whispered. Nancy nodded. Sarah got pregnant. She told David she'd get rid of it. But she didn't. She had the baby. Left him with my mother while she and David. She couldn't finish. Where is he now? With me. My mother passed last year. I've been raising him since. Then why are you here? Nancy's voice cracked. I have cancer. Stage 4. The doctors say I have maybe 6 months. And Lucas. He has no one else. The room went silent. You want me to take him? I said it flat. No emotion. Because if I let any emotion in, I'd shatter. You're David's widow. Legally, you're his closest relative. I'm the woman your brother tried to kill. I know. You're asking me to raise the child of the man who beat me. The child of the woman he cheated with. The child who exists because of the worst betrayal of my life. Nancy was crying now. I'm asking you to save a little boy who didn't choose any of this. I said no. I said it clear and firm and final. Nancy left. Clara held me while I cried. You don't owe them anything, she said. Not David. Not Sarah. Not that child. I know. You've been through enough. I know. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Nancy's face. Kept hearing her say, he has no one else. I thought about the little boy. 4 years old. About to lose the only mother he'd ever known. About to be put into the system. Passed from house to house. Growing up knowing he was unwanted. Growing up the way David grew up. And I thought, what if that's why David became what he became? What if no one ever chose him? 3 days later, I called Nancy. I want to meet him, I said. That's all. Just meet him. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. We met at a park. Neutral ground. Clara came with me. She wouldn't let me go alone. I saw Nancy first, sitting on a bench, and next to her, a little boy with dark hair and eyes too serious for his age. He was building something in the dirt with a stick. Focused. Intent. Nancy stood when she saw me. The boy looked up. Lucas, she said. This is Miss Helen. She's a friend. He looked at me, studied my face the way children do. Seeing everything. Hi, he said. Hi, Lucas. Aunt Nancy says you're a teacher. I was. Yes. I like school. He went back to his stick and dirt. I'm good at letters. Something in my chest cracked open. I sat down next to him. Not too close. Just near. What are you building? I asked. A house. For worms. They need somewhere to live. That's very kind of you. He looked up at me again. Are you sad? The question caught me off guard. Why do you ask that? Your eyes look sad. Like Aunt Nancy's. I didn't know what to say. This child I'd never met could see right through me. Sometimes grown-ups are sad, I finally said. But that's okay. Sad doesn't last forever. He nodded like this made perfect sense. Then he handed me a stick. You can help, he said. So I did. I sat in the dirt with David Bennett's son and built a house for worms. And something shifted. Something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. I took Lucas home with me that day. Just for a trial. Just to see. Clara's house became our house. Her guest room became his room. We bought him a bed. Some toys. Books. He was quiet at first. Watchful. Like he was waiting for something bad to happen. Is Aunt Nancy coming back? He'd ask every night. She's sick, sweetheart. But she'll visit when she can. Are you going to leave too? No, I'm staying right here. It took 3 weeks before he believed me. 3 weeks of me being there every morning. Every night. Every time he woke up scared. Then one morning, he crawled into my bed. Miss Helen? He whispered. Yes? Can I call you Mama? I couldn't breathe. Couldn't speak. Just nodded. He curled up next to me. Small and warm and trusting. Okay, Mama, he said. And just like that, I wasn't Helen the victim anymore. I was Helen the mother. Nancy died 4 months later. Lucas cried. I held him. Told him it was okay to be sad. That Aunt Nancy loved him. That she was watching over him. But you're still here, right? He asked. I'm still here. Promise? I promise. We buried Nancy on a cold February morning. Lucas held my hand the whole time. When they lowered the casket, he leaned against me. I don't want to be alone, he whispered. You're not alone. You have me. Forever? Forever. The years passed. Lucas grew. I healed. I went back to school. Got my master's degree in education. Started teaching again. Different town. Different school. Different life. Lucas was smart. Curious. Kind. Everything David wasn't. But sometimes I'd see it. A flash of David's smile. The shape of his jaw. The way he'd tilt his head when he was thinking. And I'd have to leave the room. Go to the bathroom. Breathe through the panic. Clara would find me there. You okay? I see him sometimes. In Lucas. Just for a second. He's not David. I know. But what if? He's not David, she'd say again. Firm. You're raising him. You're teaching him. He's yours. And she was right. Lucas was mine. Not by blood. By choice. When Lucas was 8, I met Anthony. He was the new math teacher at my school. Quiet. Gentle. The kind of man who listened more than he talked. He noticed Lucas first. Saw me pick him up after school one day. Your son? He asked. Yes. He looks like a good kid. He is. Anthony started eating lunch in my classroom. We'd talk about students. About lesson plans. About nothing important. Then one day, he asked me to dinner. I panicked. I can't. Okay. He didn't push. Didn't ask why. Just said, if you change your mind, let me know. It took me 3 months to change my mind. 3 months of watching him be patient. Be kind. Be safe. When I finally said yes, he smiled. I'll pick you up at 7. Lucas comes too, I said. If that's a problem, it's not a problem. So Lucas came. We went to a diner. Ate pancakes for dinner. Lucas talked Anthony's ear off about space and dinosaurs and his ant farm. Anthony listened to every word like it was the most interesting thing he'd ever heard. On the drive home, Lucas said, I like Mr. Parker. Me too, I said. Is he going to be my dad? I nearly drove off the road. What? If you marry him, would he be my dad? We're just friends, sweetheart. But if you did, would he be nice? Like you? I looked at him in the rearview mirror. His serious little face. Yes, I said. He would be very nice. Okay. Then I hope you marry him. We did. 2 years later. Lucas was 10 when he started asking questions. Mama, where's my first mom? I'd been dreading this. Preparing for it. But nothing prepares you. She passed away, honey. When you were very little. And my first dad? He passed away too. Were they nice? I chose my words carefully. They had problems, but they loved you. It was a lie. I don't know if David loved him. Don't know if Sarah did. But Lucas needed to believe someone wanted him before I did. Do I look like them? You have your dad's eyes. Your mom's smile. Do you have pictures? No. I'm sorry. He accepted this. Went back to his homework. But I saw the question forming. The one I knew was coming. I just didn't know when. He was 16 when it finally came. It was late. After midnight. I was grading papers in the kitchen. Heard footsteps on the stairs. Lucas appeared. Tall now. Nearly as tall as Anthony. Dark hair falling in his eyes. David's eyes. Can't sleep? I asked. He sat down across from me. Stared at his hands. I need to ask you something. My stomach dropped. Okay. Were you married before Anthony? Here it was. The question I'd been running from for 12 years. Yes. What happened to him? It didn't work out. That's not an answer, Mama. Lucas, I'm 16. I'm not a kid anymore. I deserve the truth. He was right. He did deserve the truth. But the truth was so ugly. So heavy. Your first father, I said slowly. His name was David. He was my first husband. Lucas went very still. David Bennett, I continued. And your first mother's name was Sarah. She was. Someone he knew. Someone he knew. Lucas's voice was flat. You mean someone he cheated with? Yes. So I'm the affair baby. Not a question. A statement. You're my son. But not by choice. Not at first. His sister dumped me on you, didn't she? And you took me because you felt sorry for me. That's not. Don't lie to me. His voice cracked. Loud. Angry. I'm not stupid. I've been doing the math. I've been putting it together. You were married to my father. He cheated on you with my mother. They died. And then you got stuck with me. You weren't stuck with me. Then why didn't you want me at first? His eyes were wild, desperate. Aunt Clara told me. I heard her once, years ago. She said you said no. That you didn't want to take me. The room spun. Lucas, why? Tears now, running down his face. Why didn't you want me? What was wrong with me? I stood up, moved around the table, sat next to him. Look at me, I said. He wouldn't. Lucas, look at me. Finally, he did. His face wet, broken. There was nothing wrong with you, I said. There was everything wrong with me. I was 26 years old. I'd just escaped a man who nearly killed me. I was broken, traumatized, barely surviving. And then your Aunt Nancy showed up and asked me to take the child of the man who beat me and the woman he cheated with. Lucas flinched. I said no because I was scared. Because I didn't think I could love you. Because I thought every time I looked at you, I'd see them. And you did, didn't you? His voice was hollow. You saw him. My father. The monster. Sometimes, I admitted. Yes. Sometimes I saw him. Then why did you keep me? Because I met you, I said simply. Because you handed me a stick and asked me to build a worm house. Because you were 4 years old and you'd lost everyone and you still had kindness in you. Because you were nothing like him. But I am like him. Lucas's voice broke. I have his eyes, his face, his name. What if I become? You won't. You don't know that. Yes, I do. I grabbed his hands. Held tight. Lucas Parker. You listen to me. You are not your father. You are not his violence. You are not his choices. You are what I chose. What Anthony chose. You are the boy who cried when his friend's dog died. Who gives his lunch to kids who forget theirs? Who stays after school to help the custodian because you know he's tired? That's who you are. But his blood. Blood doesn't mean anything. My voice was fierce now. Certain. You know what means something? Choice. Action. Who you decide to be every single day. That's what makes you who you are. Lucas stared at me, tears streaming. I was so scared, he whispered. So scared I'd turn into him. I know. I'm scared I'll hurt someone. That all. You won't. You couldn't. It's not in you. How do you know? Because I know you. I've known you since you were 4 years old. And in 12 years, you've never once been cruel. Never once been violent. Never once been anything but good. He started sobbing then. Deep, broken sobs that shook his whole body. I pulled him close. This boy who was almost a man. This child who carried the name of a monster but had the heart of a saint. I'm sorry, he gasped. I'm sorry I'm his son. I'm sorry you got stuck with me. I'm sorry. Stop. I pulled back, looked him in the eye. You have nothing to be sorry for. Nothing. Do you hear me? But you are the best thing that ever happened to me. The best. Do you understand? Not the worst. Not the burden. Not the reminder of my trauma. The best thing. Really? Really? He hugged me then. Tight. Like he was afraid I'd disappear. I love you, Mama, he whispered. I love you too, baby. More than you'll ever know. We sat there for a long time. Until his breathing slowed. Until the tears stopped. Anthony came downstairs. Must have heard the shouting. He looked at me. I nodded. It's okay. He sat down on Lucas's other side. You told him, Anthony said. He deserved to know. Anthony put his hand on Lucas's shoulder. You okay, son? Lucas wiped his face. I don't know. That's fair. Are you disappointed? That I'm not really yours? Anthony's face crumpled. Not really mine? Lucas, I've been your dad since you were 8 years old. I taught you to ride a bike. I helped you with your math homework. I sat through every baseball game, every school play, every science fair. You're my son. I don't care whose blood is in your veins. But if you knew, I always knew. Your mama told me everything before we got married. And I chose you anyway. Just like she did. Lucas looked between us. You both chose me. We did, I said. Even though I'm his son. You're not his son, Anthony said firmly. You're our son. His contribution ended at biology. We're the ones who raised you. Loved you. Stayed up with you when you were sick. Cheered for you when you succeeded. Held you when you failed. That's what makes a parent. Not blood. Lucas nodded slowly. Processing. I want to change my name, he said suddenly. What? I asked. Legally. I want to be Lucas Parker. Not Lucas Bennett. I don't want his name anymore. Anthony and I looked at each other. Are you sure? Anthony asked. Yes. I want to be your son. All the way. No more Bennett. Anthony's eyes filled with tears. I'd be honored. That's where I'll leave you tonight, my loves. This chapter wasn't about fists or blood or broken bones. But it was a kind of violence all the same. The violence of truth. Of facing the darkest parts of your story. Lucas is 34 now. He's an architect. Has 2 kids of his own. And sometimes, when we're together, he'll look at me and say, "Thank you for choosing me." And I always say the same thing, "Thank you for letting me." Because the truth is, he saved me just as much as I saved him. Next time, I'll tell you about Now. about being a grandmother, about this channel, about why I'm telling you all of this. But tonight, if you're carrying shame about where you came from, if you're afraid you'll become your parents, your past, your trauma, listen to me. You are not your bloodline. You are your choices. And every day, you get to choose again. I'm 71 years old now. Some mornings I wake up and forget, just for a moment, that any of it happened. That there was ever a man named David. A night on a kitchen floor. A choice that changed everything. Then I look at the photograph on my nightstand. Me, Anthony, Lucas, his wife Maria, and their 2 children. All of us squeezed together on Clara's old porch, laughing at something one of the grandkids said. And I remember. Not the pain. The after. Hi there, my loves. Helen Crawford here. Or Helen Parker, as I've been for nearly 30 years now. This is the last chapter of my story. Not because my life is ending, but because this is where the story I've been telling you finds its place to rest. So let me tell you about the years between then and now. About the slow, quiet work of becoming whole again. After that night with Lucas, the night he learned the truth, things shifted in our house. Not dramatically, not all at once, but gradually, like ice melting in spring. Lucas stopped carrying the weight of David's name. We went to court, filed the paperwork, and on a Tuesday morning in May, the judge signed the order. Lucas David Bennett became Lucas Anthony Parker. He cried when he saw it in writing. Anthony did too. I just held both of them and thought about how love can rewrite history if you let it. Lucas went to college, studied architecture, said he wanted to build things that lasted, things that could hold families safely inside. I knew what he meant. Anthony and I grew old together the way some people grow old apart. We had routines. Coffee on the porch every morning. Crossword puzzles on Sunday. Long drives with no destination just to watch the seasons change. He retired from teaching before I did. Said he wanted time to fish. To read. To sit quietly and not have to solve other people's problems for a while. I kept teaching until I was 65. Couldn't imagine stopping. Those kids needed me, or maybe I needed them. Hard to say which. When I finally did retire, the school threw a party. Former students came. Some of them were parents now. Grandparents even. They told stories about how I'd made them feel safe. How I'd believed in them when no one else did. How I'd taught them that kindness wasn't weakness. I cried. Not sad tears. Grateful ones. Clara died when I was 68. Peacefully. In her sleep. The way everyone hopes to go. At her funeral, I stood up to speak. Told everyone how she'd saved my life. How she'd opened her door when I had nowhere else to go. How she'd loved Lucas like he was her own. She taught me that family isn't always blood, I said. Sometimes it's just the people who show up. After we buried her, I went through her things. Found letters I'd written her from college. From my first teaching job. From the dark years with David. She'd kept every one. In the last letter, dated just a month before she died, I'd written, "Thank you for teaching me that surviving isn't enough. You have to learn to live again too." She'd underlined that sentence. Written in the margin, "You did more than survive, Helen. You bloomed." I sat on her bed and cried for an hour. Lucas got married when he was 28. A beautiful woman named Maria who worked as a nurse and laughed at all his terrible jokes. At the wedding, he asked me to dance. We swayed slowly to some song I can't remember anymore. And he said, "I've been thinking about him lately." "Your father?" I asked quietly. "Yeah, wondering what he'd think. If he'd be proud or angry or I don't know. It doesn't matter what he'd think." "I know. But I still wonder." I pulled back to look at him. This man who used to be a little boy building worm houses in the dirt. "You want to know what I think?" I asked. "Always. I think you became everything he couldn't be. And that's the best revenge there is." He smiled, kissed my cheek. "I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby." The grandchildren came. First Peter, then Julia. Being a grandmother felt different than being a mother. Lighter somehow. Like I got all the joy without the constant fear that I was doing it wrong. I taught them the same things I taught Lucas. Kindness. Honesty. That their worth wasn't tied to their last name or their worst mistake. Peter asked me once, "Grandma, why don't you talk about Grandpa David?" Lucas tensed. Maria reached for his hand. But I just smiled. "Because he's not your grandpa, sweetheart. Grandpa Anthony is your grandpa. The other man was just someone I used to know." "Oh, okay." And just like that, he went back to his trucks and blocks. Children accept things adults complicate. Anthony died 2 years ago. Heart attack. Quick. The doctor said he didn't suffer. I'm grateful for that. Grateful he didn't linger. Didn't fade. Just slipped from this world to the next between one breath and another. We'd had 43 years together. More than I ever thought I'd get with anyone. At his funeral, Lucas spoke. Talked about the man who chose him. Who taught him that fatherhood was about showing up, not biology. "He was the best man I ever knew," Lucas said. "And I spent every day trying to be half the dad he was." I scattered Anthony's ashes in the river. The Ohio. The same river I'd crossed all those years ago when I thought my life was over. Seemed fitting somehow. Full circle. After Anthony died, I got quiet for a while. Not depressed. Just still. Like I was waiting for something. Lucas worried. He'd call every day. "You okay, Mama?" "I'm okay, honey. Just thinking." About Dad? About everything. One day he showed up at my house with his laptop. "I want to teach you something," he said. He showed me YouTube. All these people telling stories. Sharing recipes. Talking about their lives. "You should do this," he said. Me? I'm 70 years old. Who wants to hear from an old lady? Everyone. Trust me. So I tried. Just talking to a camera Lucas set up in my living room. Telling stories about my childhood. About teaching. About small things that felt big. The first video got 12 views. Probably all family. The second got 30. The third got 200. People started commenting. Telling me their stories. Asking questions. Saying I reminded them of their grandmother. I called the channel Grandparent Tales. A place for old people to share what they'd learned. What they'd survived. What they wished they'd known sooner. It became my purpose. My way of staying connected to a world that sometimes felt like it was moving too fast. For a long time, I didn't tell the story you've been hearing. The one about David. About Sarah. About the kitchen floor and the blood and the fear. I told other stories. Safer ones. About coal country and teaching and raising Lucas. But I kept getting messages. Women mostly. Asking if I'd ever been in a bad relationship. If I knew what it felt like to be trapped. They saw something in my eyes. Some shadow I thought I'd hidden. So finally, a few months ago, I decided to tell it. All of it. The whole ugly truth. I didn't know if anyone would watch. Didn't know if it would help or just open old wounds. But Lucas said, "Mama, there's someone out there right now sitting on a bathroom floor thinking she can't survive this. She needs to hear from someone who did." So I recorded it, posted it, and waited. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of comments. Women and men sharing their stories. Thanking me for speaking up. For showing them that life doesn't end on your worst day. Some said they'd left because of my story. Some said they were planning to leave. Some just said thank you for making them feel less alone. I read every single comment. Responded when I could. Cried at most of them. Because I realized something. This story, my story, wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to everyone who'd ever felt trapped. Everyone who'd ever thought they were too broken to be loved. Everyone who'd ever wondered if surviving was enough. And the answer I kept giving was the same: surviving is just the beginning. Living is what comes after. I'm sitting on my porch right now as I tell you this. It's early evening. The kind of light that makes everything look softer. Kinder. I can hear kids playing down the street. Smell someone's grill starting up. See the river in the distance, reflecting the sky. This life. This quiet, ordinary, beautiful life. I built it from ashes. From a broken body and a broken marriage and a broken sense of who I was. I built it with the help of people who chose me. Clara, Anthony, Lucas, even Nancy, in her way. And I built it by choosing myself. Over and over. Every single day. If you've made it this far in my story, thank you. Thank you for listening to an old woman talk about things that happened half a century ago. Thank you for caring about a girl from coal country who thought her story ended on a kitchen floor. Thank you for seeing me. Not as a victim. Not as a survivor. Just as Helen. A person who lived and hurt and healed and is still here, still learning, still growing. I don't know how much time I have left. Could be years. Could be months. At 71, you stop taking tomorrow for granted. But whatever time I have, I want to spend it doing this. Telling stories. Connecting with you. Reminding people that pain doesn't get the last word. You do. So here's what I want you to take from all of this. If you're young and in love and someone is making you smaller, leave. Before the bruises. Before the broken bones. Before you forget who you were. If you're already broken, get out. I don't care how. I don't care where you go. Just get out. There are people who will help you. Call them. Use them. Survive. And if you've already survived, if you're on the other side wondering what comes next, live. Really live. Not just exist. Not just go through the motions. Build something. Love someone. Choose joy even when it's hard. Because your story doesn't end on your worst day. It begins again every single morning you open your eyes. I've got a garden now. Tomatoes and cucumbers and herbs that smell like summer. I've got Peter and Julia coming over this weekend to help me plant sunflowers. I've got Lucas calling me every night to say good night. I've got this channel and all of you. My virtual grandchildren scattered across the world. I've got a life I never thought I'd have. And some mornings, when I'm making coffee and the light comes through the kitchen window just right, I think about that young woman on the bathroom floor. I wish I could go back and tell her you're going to make it. It won't be easy. It won't be quick. But you're going to make it. And it's going to be so much better than you ever dreamed. Thank you for being here with me, my loves. If this story touched you, if it gave you hope or courage or just made you feel a little less alone, I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to this channel. Click that little bell so you don't miss the next story. Hit that like button if you feel moved to. And most importantly, leave a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me what you're carrying. Tell me you're going to be okay. Because you are. I promise you are. My name is Helen Parker. I'm 71 years old. I live by a river in Kentucky. I teach an adult literacy class on Tuesday nights. I have a son who chose me and I chose him. I have grandchildren who think I'm just a normal grandma. And I'm here to tell you your worst day is not your last day. Keep going. Keep choosing yourself. Keep writing your story. Because the best chapters? They haven't been written yet. I'll see you in the next one, my loves. Until then, take care of yourselves. And each other. Good night. JCdo.